Hi, good morning. This is the Bitcoin Morning Brief. I'm Leah, and it's April 12th. We actually have a couple desperados in the house, maybe Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, actually.
Yeah, we're over here in Austin. I actually forgot my hat because I got off the plane at like 5 in the morning. Still hanging out. So thank you, Jimmy, for hooking me up and showing off your hat.
Well, yeah, if I may say so myself, you look about 30% cooler. Just like pretty much anybody that wears this hat, they just look cooler as a result. And I look less cool as a result of not having the hat on.
Giacomo, can we see your hat too?
My hat is original from Dallas, not from Austin, but from Dallas. And since I didn't want to, I mean, if even Tone is looking cooler today, I have to do something to look cooler as well.
So yeah, you definitely look 20%, 30% cooler. So very happy.
Okay, thank you. So now today we will confuse all the viewers because probably me and Tone will do mempool and Jimmy will do price.
Perfect. All right.
I want to do a Tone impression. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, starting us off, everybody's been talking about the action in Bitcoin, especially over the past 2 hours, has been extraordinary, right? Price surge was huge. Volume is huge. Massive short squeeze. So we're actually going to start off today's show with Tone diving into price and to chat about what's going on.
Yeah, let's go right into that. And let's take a look at this. Now, I'm not actually going to go into the weekly. We're going to do price later on in the show as well. Here was the big pop on the daily. This took place literally in about an hour. I was at a Starbucks at like 5:30 in the morning watching this whole thing happen. And a lot of people asked, hey, how come you're not going live in order to manage that? And my answer was, because I have no idea what's going on, and nobody did. Nobody had a real explanation for this. There was no news. There was a little bit of fake news that wasn't really even fake news. Here's the 12-hour chart that I was looking at before. The triangle was starting to set up. I mean, I expected something like this in the opposite direction based the way technical analysis was setting up. And the environment was really, really bearish. Here's the 1-hour chart to show you guys that this all took place in 1 hour. So, and it started off like we're about to go significantly lower. And look, there was, we had a 9 on the hourly chart. There was a 9, we did our little correction, and then we started to tick up. Those that traded the hourly chart, I mean, there was a green 2 trading above a green 1, but I would not have probably taken that trade. And now that it's happened and there is still absolutely no news, it's almost safe to assume that this was all just like a short squeeze. Here are a couple of charts that I got from my group chat, so thank you. And the red is basically the amount of shorts that were on the table. And you can see how, I mean, the bearishness just, got exhausted. It was just a short, I think this is short term. I don't see anything that should be reversing the price on a longer term basis right now. And the short it was just too many shorts, too many short positions. And either, what happened there? Hope my internet's still good. It was just too many short positions. So either it just self-exhausted or someone that knows what they're doing decided to take advantage of the overzealous shorts on the table. Here's another look of BTCUSD long minus BTCUSD shorts on Bitfinex. And you can also see how things just got a little bit out of hand. But it's mostly this chart that I found kind of interesting. The short interest was just too much. See, the problem with shorts, right? And this is what people don't realize, is that shorting does not cause market drops. When more people enter a short position, let's say you're not allowed to short and you have 100, let's just say like $1 billion in a short position. Jimmy,
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. You have $1 billion in a short position, and so not a short position. You have $1 billion in a long position, and then people want to go short on top of that. Someone has to let you borrow those shares that you're long. So now there is, let's say, half of those people, wanna go short. So you have to like let somebody borrow those long positions. So you end up like over leveraged to the other side. But it's kind of hard for me to explain it. It's also like early, I haven't slept much. So maybe we'll get to that on a specialized podcast. But as far as I can see, I don't really see anything. I don't see anything here that is indicating that this is gonna reverse the price of Bitcoin on a longer term basis. I really see it as wrecking the shorts, but the proper play in this environment is still to be short, because if you zoom out, I was saying when we were falling, I was saying, hey, you have a chance to get into this cross right here before more downside. And because it took so long, you almost can't make it to the cross unless you go up $2,000 in one day. So let's see where the day closes. I have a feeling that by the time today closes, we will be back below this blue line. My best guess at the close of day, we're going to be back to like the $7,200 area, because I just don't see anything here other than shorts getting wrecked either by natural market forces or by a savvy trader causing it by, executing some huge bullish trades, causing the shorts to cover, or an inexperienced trader doing it by accident, right? Kind of like a poker player. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you get good and you help yourself in a position. I'm not convinced by this move yet. Let's put it that way. All right, I'm gonna stop screen share. Let's do some stories and we take it from there. Back to you.
Fantastic. All right. Well, actually, kind of back to you, because we're going to start with your former fortress here. So JP Morgan sued over cash advance fees for cryptocurrency purchases. So really, a man in Idaho, credit card holder, claims that JP Morgan Chase treated his cryptocurrency buys as cash advances instead of purchases, and charging him interest rates as much as 30% a year in additional fees. To note, he used Coinbase. For me, this is a TLDR, right? He's obnoxious in my eyes, and he actually only incurred $143 in fees, but he's suing for $1 million. So, Tom, just because it's JP Morgan Chase, is this another example of issues with the current system of using credit cards where you give them so much identifying information, or Coinbase?
Actually, it's neither. It's one of these things where JP Morgan is technically a private company, right? Even though they are a public company, because anybody can buy their stock, but they're in the private sector. So technically speaking, those that hate the government so much shouldn't complain that JP Morgan can do whatever the hell it wants, and it can charge you any fees that it likes. If you don't like them, go use another bank, right? So in a way, JP Morgan can kind of do whatever it wants with their credit cards that they have their name on it. And if JP Morgan deems that buying Bitcoin with your credit card, whether through Coinbase or anything else, is too risky, they will, try to charge you for it. Now, this is like, again, a lot of this stuff comes off the heels of the financial crisis, where people were upset at banks for, doing the opposite of what they're doing. And the banks were giving out all of these risky loans, and then people blamed the banks for giving them money too easily and letting them buy an overpriced house. And now we have the opposite, right? The bank is saying, hey, this is too risky, we're going to charge you more. Now, again, like this is like the libertarians will have to pick a side here, and the anarchists, and I know Giacomo's probably going to go at it with me in a minute, but there's government regulation that prevents JP Morgan from charging you exuberant fees. And it's very, very possible that JP Morgan has broken those rules by charging you unreasonable fees where they should not have. So again, pick your side here, right? Either you're on the side of the government's regulation on consumer protection, or you don't want the government to be involved, in which case, don't blame JP Morgan for charging you fees for using their credit card for Bitcoin transactions, right? So people are gonna have to pick a side here. Yeah, of course it's ridiculous, right? The guy incurs a few $100 in fees and he's suing for $1 million. But that's a different problem, not the case at hand. So I don't know if Jimmy wants to comment because he's next to me.
I do. I mean, first of all, if they can't just charge you whatever they want. You sign a contract with them whenever you open a credit card or whatever, and there are terms and conditions in that contract, and they specify exactly what a cash advance is. I don't think cryptocurrency buying is necessarily a cash advance, so that's something that needs to be litigated or figured out. I don't think he's entitled to millions of dollars, but a few $100s perhaps. I will say, though, that in traditional markets, they don't let you buy stocks with a credit card. So I don't see why they let you buy cryptocurrency with a credit card. That practice should more or less stop, because it's just kind of asking for trouble. And you know, as Bitcoin goes up higher and higher, I think you're going to see more of that, where people are going to sort of utilize being able to get loans in a credit card to buy crypto, and then you know, they have no downside. They can declare bankruptcy. There's all sorts of moral hazards around sort of the hyper Bitcoinization that's coming. So these are things that a lot of these banks probably aren't thinking about now, but they certainly will in the next 5 to 10 years.
Now, Jimmy, I actually agree with you on terms and conditions, but I get every credit card updates their terms and conditions, feels like every month, right? And I get these giant letters in the mail. They've updated your terms and conditions that you're not going to read. So again, JP Morgan could have easily updated in their terms and conditions, which they probably should have. But again, it's up to them. That was a good point. They don't let you buy stocks with a credit card. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, we're pretty much on the same page there.
Giacomo, Tone mentioned earlier that it's a bit binary there. You want to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm a little bit not binary about this. I mean, I'm not sure that the choice that you have to do is either to ask for the government to step into a private exchange, or just to condone and support any kind of exchange whatsoever. I think that even without the involvement of government, it's more than legit to express judgments on the merit of a specific exchange. For example, I am completely against prohibitionism, but so I don't think government should prohibit any kind of substance between consulting adults. But then if somebody gives me a pill that can screw up my system, I think that I can express my contrariety and my doubts about that. So this is a case in which on a basic level, if there is a restaurant that charges 100 times the normal rates, I think that it's okay to not forbid this kind of exchange among consenting adults, but I can just tell around that there's not a very good restaurant because it charges too much comparatively. So it's legit, but it's not really convenient. So I can stay in between, just exposing inconvenient deals. Also, here there is something more, because we have at least other two levels. The second, as Jimmy said, there are terms and conditions, and if you violate those, even from an anarchist, anarcho-capitalist perspective, if you are violating a commercial promise, a pact, a contract, actually you are committing violence, implicit violence. So it's okay for everybody else, not just the governments. I hope that is not the government, but for everybody else to enforce the contract itself. So if they violated the terms of service, they are liable for a fraud, and they can be punished and enforced even in an anarchist context. So it's not so binary. The third consideration that I would like to do is that even if something doesn't violate the contract and is not per se a violent action, still something can be hypocritical and ridiculous, like the bank that whose CEO Jimmy Dimon just exposed, told that Bitcoin was a fraud, and now they are overcharging clients in order to buy cryptocurrencies. So this is very hypocritical, and probably it's okay to expose them as a very hypocritical institution.
Hey, Giacomo, I actually don't see that as hypocritical, right? I mean, if Jamie Dimon and the bank sees Bitcoin as a fraud, it makes perfect sense that they are protecting themselves from people buying a fraudulent product by making sure that they are not left on the hook of people's credit cards if they, let's say they allowed people to get into BitConnect with their credit cards, right? By charging additional fees on something they see as a fraud, it actually makes sense from a bank standpoint. So I don't see that as being hypocritical. I see that being in line with their thinking. Hypocritical would be if they lowered fees on you buying a Bitcoin through JP Morgan while calling it a fraud. That would be hypocritical.
That's a good point. I mean, if I call something a fraud, usually I do not sell it to people. It's strange. It's weird that I call something a fraud and then I sell it and then I take a lot of profit from this. It's like we talk about ICO and the problem of ICOs, and then we do an ICO, but with very expensive tokens. So because we are saying that the ICO is a fraud, so we are overcharging our tokens. It's complex. I think I don't see it so much in black and white. But that's just to defend my anarchist point of view. That's a little bit off topic. The interesting thing is that I think that we can say that government regulation is not directly correlated with honesty in a Bitcoin business. For example, some very dodgy from the regulator point of view business like BTCE were kind of honest in their trading, while highly regulated KYC AML business like Coinbase are constantly leveraging frauds or market manipulation or scams. So it's not that where there is more government regulation, you find more honesty. Sometimes there is even an inverse correlation.
All right. Very interesting. Gentlemen, let's move through these a little quickly. I agree with what you guys are saying in that private company we have down here just mentioning that regarding the terms and conditions and if you violate them, Jimmy, to your point, but it does seem like there's a bit of confusion specifically between Coinbase and Visa MasterCard of whose code is at fault, and maybe we'll see how that plays out. So to your point, true, stockbrokers often have policies where you can't buy against buying stocks with credit, sorry. But moving on to other stocks. So we have NASDAQ exchange to delist long blockchain stock, finally. So this is great. The NASDAQ and regulators are finally going after these companies, and there's loads who change their names, also their missions sometimes, in hopes of capitalizing on the crypto craze, right? And to note, the switch from Long Island Iced Tea Corp to Long Blockchain Corp helped the company at the time surge more than 300%. Since the delisting, it says in here, they've dropped more than 37% as of the peak. So just to note, after doing a little digging, NASDAQ had actually threatened to delist Long Blockchain in October before the name change because the market value was too low. So I think to note, they definitely did it for a reason. Jimmy, is the fun coming to an end for these shenanigans?
Oh, absolutely not. There are going to be more of these things coming up. And, you know, the thing about the stock market is that there are all sorts of sketchy reverse mergers and things like that that are constantly happening. And, you know, it's not just companies renaming themselves. It's other sort of unscrupulous people sort of taking over these very low price stocks through a reverse merger and then changing the mission and doing stuff like that. A lot of these companies are more or less, you know, like random companies like medical devices or something like that. And then they'll rebrand them and focus on the blockchain and have it pop because the public doesn't know any better. Yeah, that's a classic reverse merger sort of fraudulent kind of thing. It's a target for short sellers and things like that. So, you know, I expect more of it because there's a lot of fraud out there, and this is one of them.
Tone, it's saying that they will be able to operate OTC. If you have any comments on if this will be a way that, given Jimmy's point, that if they do continue to do this, maybe they'll just go on the OTC market and also change how the trading operations go.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to go OTC after you've been nobody wants to go to pink sheets after you've already been on the NASDAQ. And I actually did not know that NASDAQ threatened to delist this company before they did the name change. I will say that I used this particular example in my presentation of the inevitable ICO bubble. And I specifically compared it to a point in history where this was happening in the late 90s, where companies were just changing their names to anything with a .com or anything digital. So the SEC is not new to seeing this. I'm surprised that the C-level managers of that company have not yet been popped by the SEC. They're probably going to. I mean, if these guys actually get arrested for securities fraud, because their stock went up from like under $1 to like $16, it was something ridiculous. I have a slide. Like I said, if you go to my YouTube and you watch my presentation from the Plug and Play meetup, I talk about this specific company and how all they're doing is replaying what happened 20 years ago, back in 1998 and 1999.
Yeah, Giacomo, have you been noticing anything on the European exchanges similar?
No, not yet. Here, I don't have many news, European news about blockchain names quoting, actually. I think it's more a US exchange thing for now. I don't know if in Asia there is something like that. What I will notice is that one of the things which are problematic here is that this kind of reaction can just exclude from the market the more obvious frauds attempt, cyber squatting, let's say, phishing attempts, but not the less obvious ones. Like there are some companies that are putting the name blockchain there, the word blockchain there, just because they want to pump the title with a hype, and like this ICE company. But there are also companies that are putting blockchain inside randomly in order to ride the hype, with some plausibility more with illiterate, especially with illiterate investors. I will do the example of IBM with Hyperledger and Fabric. So I mean, between the ICE company and IBM, I don't think there is a huge difference of technical competence about blockchain itself, but this kind of action will probably only exclude the more blatant kind of abuse of the terminology.
Right, interesting, absolutely. Everybody using the terms to their own benefit. Okay, moving to Santander. So nice European company for you. So Santander launching blockchain payment app this week. So Santander Group is launching a blockchain-based app for cross-border foreign exchange tomorrow using Ripple. I do think there's a big story for Ripple Tech to be the base behind an app to make foreign exchange payments. So we got a lot of fun finance today. Is an indication that maybe Ripple Tech is getting some legs. And to note, foreign exchange is massive, right? Foreign exchange is one of the biggest markets in the world, bigger than the stock market, and the banks control it. So just to note, something weird for me in this story was that Santander's VC arm had only invested 4 million in Ripple's 32 million Series A, which is very, very small. Jimmy, Santander is using the Xcurrent platform. Xcurrent doesn't utilize Ripple, the token. Can it be based on Ripple's, how can it be based on Ripple's Xcurrent platform, but not utilize the token?
Well, so from what I understand, Ripple has like 6 different tokens, and XRP was just one of them from many years ago. So I like, without like diving deep into exactly what the thing that they signed is, and there's like fat chance of that ever happening. There's it's hard to tell exactly what they've agreed to. The thing about these companies is that they'll put out press releases about random things and make it sound like it's a much bigger deal than it is. It's probably some like very small thing, and they agreed to a press release just to make both of their companies look good. For Santander, it's obviously like, hey, we're on the bleeding edge of technology. For Ripple, we're getting more customers. It's yet to be seen if they're actually utilizing anything. And obviously, if you're a Ripple shill, you're going to be like, hey, look, Ripple's doing really well, even though they're not using the token, and it has nothing to do with the token. And if you're Santander, you're going to be like, hey, we're upgrading all our systems, and you know, we're like hip and with it or whatever. I don't think this really means very much.
Okay, could be similar to the previous story. Tone, as we all know, you do not like the Ripple token, but you have spoken that you are very interested in the Ripple tech and that there is maybe something behind it. Do you want to comment on this story?
Sure. Well, I like how the article made it very, very clear that whatever product from Ripple they are using, it has nothing to do with the token itself. And this, again, I continue to say how Ripple has a monster problem. Like anyone with half a brain understands that the Ripple token is the scam here. Now, Ripple may be able to build some useful technology, like some kind of a, you know, database, permissioned ledger, or whatever the hell you want to call it, but it's not a blockchain. Even with the Ripple token, it's not a blockchain. And the Ripple token is totally unnecessary. And it basically articles like this are just a tool for the Ripple shills to talk about that the Ripple, like this is how they're investing in Ripple. Again, I can debate people whether Ripple has the right people to build this decentralized ledger technology for the banks, but I have to default to Ripple is one of the worst projects to build a a permissioned ledger for the banks, because if there was anybody smart at Ripple, they would have seen through the scam token from day one. So it automatically puts me in a position where there's nobody competent at Ripple, and they're basically just, you know, keeping this thing afloat as long as they can before shit hits the fan. It's almost like a Bernie Madoff situation, right? Like sooner or later it's going to blow up. Same thing with like the mortgage debt and like the subprime lending of Bear Stearns, where I used to work. It's like sooner or later it's going to blow up. But hey, you don't have to be embarrassed tomorrow. You can be embarrassed in 3 years, and maybe you won't be with the company anymore. Maybe you'll leave and cash out and fork Ripple again and start Stellar ×2, right? So I think everyone on Ripple that's involved with that company is either knowingly scamming or they're just delaying the scam. But the Ripple token is a scam. I mean, the sooner they admit it and the sooner this nightmare ends, the better off everything will be. Or else you just wait for it to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it implodes in a bigger way. And then everyone's upset. How come nobody saw it coming? Or how come nobody did anything? So there you go.
Giacomo, back to Europe. Is this an answer to your previous question, my previous question to you about European blockchain and hyperwriting?
Yeah, I think this is an answer to your question. As I was saying, the obvious abuse of the terminology, like in T companies, I didn't see it in Europe yet, but this low abuse of the terminology is something that Santander, for example, is using here. So there are like many Ripple fans are, especially on Twitter, are continually answering, how is possible that you say that Ripple is a scam if these giants are using it? And as Don explained, there are different levels. I mean, this POC, I think it will bring to nothing, but even if it does bring to something, just try to listen to the news with this correct terminology. So some banks that used central counterparties, digital central counterparties, traditional legacy ones until yesterday, being it intra-banking central counterparty or interbanking central counterparties like clearinghouses, these banks are now moving to a new version of the centralized system. They are renewing the centralized system from a technological point of view. Is this interesting news? Probably not. I mean, no news of this kind will ever eat a newspaper, especially not CoinDesk, but neither a normal newspaper. I mean, the Santander is probably experimenting a new provider for their centralized digital system. This is a no news. But if you put blockchain in there, even if there is not a blockchain in Ripple, then it looks like a news. And if you put decentralization in there, even if Ripple is centralized, that looks like a news. And the other part is that by association of name, people that wants to pump the XRP token will use this news to try to legitimize the token by one hope, like if the banks are trying the technology, if the technology is promoted by a provider which also sold this token years ago, then that means that the token will go to the moon. And it actually works for a while, like when IOTA was connected to Microsoft, there was a pump, because in the short term is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people talks about this news being positive, the token will go up in value for a while because of the hype, and then it will just crash down. So the scam is not that the company called Ripple could maybe provide some new software, centralized software to banks. Maybe yes. I'm skeptical even on this grade, because I think that traditional counterparties like or consortiums like SWIFT or like traditional bank provider will always do in the short term a better job than new startups, outsiders like Ripple. And also Ripple is even a step toward more centralization. Like right now, banks are using systems that are somehow interconnected. If they switch to Ripple, they are just giving everything in the hands of a Ripple private company. So I'm skeptical about banks using the Ripple protocol. But even if they did, they are not using anything related with blockchain or decentralization. They're possibly using applied cryptography, which is nothing new, it's TLS and everything. And this has nothing to do with Ripple token. So the scam is not the fact that this could happen. The scam is that this has nothing to do with the token pump.
Interesting. Yeah. And to note, right, so instead of using the normal exchanges or payments on the central bank system, which does use the SWIFT system, right? Yeah, you're correct. Ripple's trying to be in the middle of this. Very interesting. Moving to a insane scam. We are going to turn to you, Tone, in a second, because you nailed this one. So an absolute useless token who can't be redeemed. You can't do anything with it. People are putting money into it. Another example where honestly, we just need to take a step back and see the bigger picture, because this just keeps happening. I will move to yours, but just very quickly, you had Palmer say, if you're not reading between the lines, the EOS ERC20 token provides zero utility and absolutely worthless. So Tone, I'm gonna bring yours up.
Oh, not that one, it was the other one, but this one also. There you go. So again, I didn't write the Reddit post, somebody else wrote the Reddit post. Like, I didn't have to read any of it, right? Like, I made the call a while ago that Dan Larimer was gonna quit Steemit because he needed to start another scam. And people made fun of me and they said, no, Dan Larimer's never leaving Steemit, it's his baby. And then Dan Larimer leaves Steemit. And then within 6 months, he starts the EOS scam. And when the EOS token was being launched, if you take a look at the date of that tweet, it was in June. So it was basically 11 months ago. And when the EOS token was being talked about, I didn't need to look at the terms and conditions. The moment I see Dan Larimer involved, I know it's a scam. Therefore, when somebody did take a look at the terms and conditions, it was spelled out right there. If you want to click on that image, Leah, right in there so people can see it magnified, and just read the part in red. It literally states that you are buying nothing. It states that you are buying vaporware. Now, at the time, the EOS, believers, even before the token launch, were saying, no, this is just legalese. They're just saying that so they don't get arrested. If they are just saying that, and they're doing that on purpose, that's the fastest way for them to get arrested. You don't get to like put stuff into your terms and conditions to avoid regulation. That's not how the law works, right? So they were literally selling you vaporware that is useless. And now a year later, people are realizing that they have stuck to their terms and conditions, and all these people bought were pumped a security that is totally useless. This is what you're getting. Now, to prove how stupid people are, they're pumping this thing even more this week of all weeks. And Jackson Palmer is just simply raising the issue. Yeah, there you go. You should be able to see the actual terms and conditions right on there. Jackson Palmer is just raising the issue that people raised a year ago, and now he's being demonized for it, for like educating people on this thing. And EOS was also part of my presentation from Plug and Play. EOS is a billboard. That's all it is. It's a useless piece of technology. Hey, Dan Larimer is going to leave EOS and he's going to start another scam. He's going to keep doing it until, until he either gets arrested or someone breaks his fingers. It's one or the other, because he's going to keep pumping out these scams. There you go. I mean, what else do you expect from this useless token that continues to pump? Jimmy?
Jimmy, do you agree with Ton on this?
Sorry. Can you pull up my other tweet actually? Because I was at the EOS presentation, and their EOS like CEO or whatever, whoever like their high-level guy is, he's standing there on stage selling the security to completely unqualified people, talking about how Bitcoin was an ICO. I mean, this is the guy I believe was one of the people in charge. And if you scroll down to the replies to that tweet, if you just scroll down a little bit and just just leave that on the screen and click the more button right under my last tweet there. It's a little too small for me to read. Hold on a second. That's actually my bad. I can magnify it. Yeah, people were making all of these excuses like on GitHub. And yeah, oh no, Leah, scroll down a little bit and hit there. There's a thing there, one more. Yeah. Click that one. Right. I mean, I called people dumb for believing in this thing back when it was introduced, because look, when you have a guy that's running this project talking about how Bitcoin is an ICO, come on. I mean, I'm sorry. These people are either scammers or they shouldn't even, talk to another adult, or probably shouldn't even talk to children. These people should not speak. They're either scamming on purpose or they're too dumb to talk in public. You guys pick one. The whole EOS thing is very frustrating. And this is how bubbles get out of control, because these people are buying tulips. EOS is worse than a tulip. At least the tulip's useful. You can, give it to a girl. And anyway, let me stop there before I get
Tone. Okay, moving that one quickly. Giacomo, do you agree with Tone? But, well, you have a wife. You can say if she likes tulips.
Well, no, I do agree with Tony. I think he made a very, very important point, especially about the fact that there is a lot of ambiguity, especially among investors. Sometimes even when the company explicitly says this token is useless in the terms of service, the investors or the traders will still continue to say, yeah, they're saying it's useless, but that's just for the regulators. So this creates a very, very funny dilemma, which is these things are either illegal or scams. The funny thing is that if they are legal, then they are scams because they are selling stuff to people which is useless. If they are not scams, like they really are going to pay dividends and to make people rich if the platform works, then they are not scams. They are completely legit, but they are illegal. And so I would expect a crypto security and legal crypto security to succeed only if it's done by an anonymous person on a trustless decentralized system with guarantees of honesty through smart contracts, which is something that is theoretically possible, but very, very science fiction right now. So we have a dilemma here. Actually, it's a trilemma, but I don't want to take it. In the next episode, I will try to present you the Zucco's triangle, which is a mockery of the Zucco's triangle about ICOs.
Jimmy, do you have last thoughts on this?
Well, so EOS sort of pioneered this this clause that says, we're not actually, selling anything useful, and pretty much every ICO since then has put in that clause into their terms and conditions, where they say we're actually not anything, and you shouldn't expect anything from us, and that's a way to sort of cover their butts in case the things their token doesn't actually do anything, which is inevitable, but they're all gonna get sued anyway once the price comes down. What's crazy to me about EOS is that it's pumping like crazy, and they've spent a lot of money marketing, and they have a giant budget to do this. And I've said this about Ethereum as well. They all of these places have these giant foundations that actually, do a lot of the marketing. They go out and basically talk to a lot of people and try to get them to buy. They sponsor lots of conferences where they'll speak about, and I don't know if you've ever heard like an EOS presentation, but it's very like theoretical, and like they don't actually talk about the tech at all. It's very aspirational. Like
So during Consensus, there was a giant EOS billboard in Times Square, and for 2 days straight, they had a conference room at Consensus where they repeated the same EOS presentation every hour on the hour for 2 days straight.
Yeah.
They had their own room. Like EOS had their own room at Consensus last year.
Yeah.
And repeating the same presentation every hour for 2 days straight.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the thing, right? Like they have giant marketing arms, and this is why these coins tend to pump. And I include Ethereum in this because they have these giant budgets where they're just sort of pumping their coin, and then they want more people to get in and stuff like that. What's going to be really interesting is when these foundations run out of money, because at that point, what do you do? Do you print more coins? Do you get donations? What do you do? Because I think that's when sort of the monetary policy of the coin starts changing. And I think that's sort of like the point at which everything sort of flips. When is that going to happen? I don't know. A lot of these foundations have a lot of money. Rumor has it like EOS has like close to $1 billion at this point. And they're more or less sort of like, managing this money. They don't have to build a single product, and, they could like run off of this for like 20 years or something like that. Who knows if that's actually what's going to happen, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's an interesting social experiment at the very least.
Giacomo, do you want to finish off by just making a comment about the mainnet potential or supposed release in June?
We will see. I mean, the problem of the mainnet is that if nobody is using this thing for anything meaningful, if all the money that is there is just in token investment and token trading, but nothing is really at stake in the system, then any kind of shitty system can work for a while, even in mainnet. I mean, one thing is to say we are launching a Lightning Network in mainnet on Bitcoin with 30 Bitcoin each in the channels, and now people is losing money because it's still not perfect. It can break down and stuff like that. One thing is to say that we launch in mainnet something that nobody uses for some purpose which is not even clear. It's pretty easy, I guess. You can define mainnet everything since there is no, since these things are very centralized. First, there is no money that you can go stealing because the tokens are not into smart contracts. When the tokens are into smart contracts, like in the parity multisig contract or in the DAO multisig, then people will go to take them. But then even if people goes to take them, since these are centralized projects, they can just undo the test. So there is no real bounty here to stress anything. So yeah, probably they will do something. I mean, I hope for them, so the pump of the token will stay high, but it's not really meaningful.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yep.
I was just gonna close out by reminding people that before Dan Larimer started BitShares, then he moved on to Steem, and now he's on EOS. Prior to all of that, the famous statement of Satoshi's, if you still don't understand this and don't get it, I no longer have the time to explain it to you. That statement by Satoshi himself was said to Dan Larimer.
I think that's us all. Yep.
Good remark. I think that even if, to the traders looking at the brief, even if you think that we just have fun in saying scam and these things are completely legist and you are going to make a lot of money because it's the next Bitcoin and it's going to the moon and you're right and we are wrong, maybe that's the case. But even in this case, please at least look at the historical track record of the funders and the startuppers involved. I mean, this guy launched three shitcoin scams in a row and abandoning the previous and funding another one. So at least, even if you think we are maximalists, we are cynical, yeah, everything is scam, how is possible, at least just look at the track record of these people.
Sure. All right, moving to Bitcoin. At least you guys have hats in case it's raining, but Jimmy, you want to give us this weather report?
Yeah, so it looks like there's something going on in the last hour or so. There's you could see that giant green area. I mean, you can still probably get in for like 20 Satoshi per byte, but something is happening. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot of transactions. Probably a lot of people that are trying to get on exchanges because of the price pump in the last hour or two. I'm guessing that's what's happening. We're seeing that 8 a.m. bump again. There's always seems to be a lot of transactions that come online right around 8 a.m. But yeah, I expect this to slow down unless we have a lot of price action the rest of the day. And it goes hand in hand with this stuff. So that's Tone's area. I'll let him finish up on that.
All right, let's go take a look at the chart. I did a little brief thing on the price as a lead. So now that we're up to 1,800 people, which is great. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Here's the weekly chart. The weekly chart is bouncing off of the 50-week moving average, and we've actually seen this before. If I zoom this out enough, if I'm gonna actually drop the indicators. If I zoom this out and I just move back a little bit on the weekly chart, you can see how back in 2014, we also, we initially broke the 50-week moving average and bounced for a week, then we got stuck right at it. And then we broke out. But by then, it was a combination of a descending weekly trend line meeting the 50-week moving average, and we busted out of that pretty hard. And we made this secondary high. Now the picture looks a little bit different today, not much different, but a little bit different. It looks different enough in that if I draw that same descending trend line, which I have not yet done on a weekly scale, something like this, we still have not yet broken that line. So it's possible that we could repeat 2014 exactly the same, but there is still room here. I'll probably adjust this line over time, but a little bit on the trend line, but though it looks like it's drawn pretty well. So you still have room with this trend line. And we can get stuck between this trend line and the 50-week moving average going into May or into mid-May and then see what happens. But I continue to, like I said this morning, like an hour ago, we started this video, there's absolutely no reason for this upswing in price. That nothing with Bitcoin has changed fundamentally. There hasn't been any critical news. There really hasn't been anything. And it looks like just a straight up result from over leveraged short positions that somebody either accidentally or purposely forced to short squeeze, or there was just no more sellers left. Everyone was already short. And that's all it is. And I have a feeling that we are going to still go down back to the $6,000 area. And all of the people that had their short bets are going to be so upset that they had the right trade, but they got stopped out at the top and not at the bottom of this massive pump. Like the market has a way of separating people from their money, even when they make smart decisions when it comes to trading, because trading is very, very difficult. And I'm still expecting us to close below this blue line by end of day. And I would not be surprised at all if by Sunday night, we are actually lower than 7,900 and this entire green candle will completely be gone by Sunday. Or if it does linger a little bit, it is a 5, it can get you to a 9, but like, we could make a potentially new high if we close in the area of the blue line, but we're still going to be lower than this high. The depth cross is still with us. The 50-day moving average is still resistance. This downward trend line is still resistance. And if I get out of log scale, oh no, we're above that line, so that doesn't really help. But this trend line is still resistance. Your higher level moving averages, this is the 128-day, it's already turning down. The 200-day may turn down eventually. Like you still have mountains and mountains of resistance. And I still think this is a straight up short squeeze that's not gonna last. It just doesn't feel like the right environment to reverse the price of Bitcoin back to new highs. And going out to lower levels doesn't really do much right now. I mean, we're pulling back. It's nice that we're still pulling back fairly slowly, but at some point later today, I'm expecting one of these hourly red candles to be somewhat significant, like a few $100 worth of significant. I mean, we're now on a red one, probably a red two. Once a red two starts trading below a red one, again, at the least, I'm expecting a back test of the breakout area. So let's hope that if we get back to 7,000, we can then bounce and go higher. But I remain pretty damn skeptical. Like the charts I showed at the beginning of this video, shorts were simply over leveraged. Shorts had one of the biggest positions in a year. And there was also a tweet that someone sent that said that more Bitcoin changed hands today than at any other time in history. That's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else to add other than sorry for your loss if you were short. This is why you need to set proper stop losses and get out of these positions quickly. And I still feel that there is a short environment. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if by Sunday, all of these gains are completely gone.
All right.
Guys.
Well, it's definitely going to be an interesting day. Thanks, Tone. Cowboys. Jimmy, do you plan on teaching Tone some line dancing later tonight?
If I knew how, then perhaps. I think we're just going to go grab some barbecue instead.
That's probably a good idea. Do you guys have any updates to end on your seminar, Tone?
Oh yeah, the seminar is coming up on Saturday. I'll do like a full trading video. I guess I'll promote it a little bit. But yeah, if you're here in Austin, what's today? Today's Thursday, right? Yeah, so it's coming up in 2 days. Saturday, so like you only have 24 more hours to register. I still have about 3 or 4 seats left. So definitely find a way to get in touch with me. Email's probably the best. Just go through my website, Liberty Life Trail.
And my seminar is next week in San Francisco. We have like 30 something people already. So if you really want to get in, email me or apply on the website and I'll see what I can do. But most likely you're going to have to go for New York, which is going to be May 17th and 18th, right after consensus. So, you know, that'll be fun as well. Yeah, there's scholarships available. We're getting a lot of interest from a lot of people that want to see more Bitcoin developers in the space. And this is a great way to get in if you're like a student or somebody that's looking to change careers or something like that. There's, you know, there's no lack of resources for you to become a Bitcoin developer. So yeah, that's my thing.
Giacomo, last night?
Well, I don't do seminars yet, but if you want, you can like my tweets when I troll people on Twitter.
Perfect. All right. Well, everybody have a great day. You can find this later on the World Crypto Network. Thank you guys so much. Take care.
This song is done.
Jimmy, Tone, you guys are frozen. Giacomo, not frozen.
Okay, I think that was the the final word.
I think so. You guys are frozen, Tone and Jimmy. I think we're still live, Giacomo.
Yeah, we're live. But because you cannot shut it down until they do.
Well, how's everything going in Italy?
It's fine. Now I will pump some shitcoin. So since Stone cannot see me, so let's buy Zoocoin.
Absolutely. You have. What about there we go. Okay. Well, now we're the only ones live. I think we leave this. Everybody have a great day. Bye.
Bye.